copyrighted stuff. You're not supposed to do that. So in any case, it's from Book 7 of the Republic. The Republic, res publica in Latin, the public thing. In Greek, it's politeia, which kind of means public life or society. So Republic, if you think, what's the name of the book? Is it all about, how to have a republic, a government type? That's not exactly what it's all about. Kind of neat. Cicero wrote his own version of the Republic using Roman individuals, famous Roman individuals, instead of the ones that are in the dialogue that Plato has written, including Socrates. But in any case, the Republic I mentioned last class is considered to be, along with the Bible, one of the books that has had the most impact on our civilization. And that's primarily because of how many people have read it and have been influenced by the questions that are in it. This particular little allegory of the cave has been interpreted in lots of different ways, but it seems like the main thing that Plato is trying to use it for is to indicate that there's levels of knowledge or experience, and in fact we end up with see if this will be a see if I can find an image of it. Okay, that's a good one. So it's called the divided line. So you've got four different ascending qualities of knowledge, so to speak. The only one that's really called knowledge is the last one, but the first one is kind of an illusion. You might think of the kind of experience you have where you see a mirage in the desert. Is the one I guess that where my favorite one is the two guys that are dying of thirst and crawling through the desert, and they see a Coke machine up in front of them, and they think, "Oh, we're saved," and they crawl over to it, and they get up, and they're about ready to have a Coke, and then they realize, oh, it's a Pepsi machine. How disappointed they are, because it's just a mirage. It's not really there, and yet it's a kind of experience. Dreaming maybe would be part of this, right? But then the next stage, as you move up, is the realm of belief. I need a better. This one doesn't really have a whole. How about we go to this one? Belief. Belief in these physical things. So I see objects, I see people, I see all this stuff, and I think that's real. And today, of course, we would say yes. Actually, David Hume, who died in 1776 A.D. So you can see that's quite a ways away from Plato. He's convinced that the only thing we know for sure is the experience we're having at this moment. So even though I'm looking at a person and I say you're there, oh, now I don't know that you're there. Oh, yeah, you're still there, right? So it's kind of silly. It's very, very based on exactly what I'm experiencing at the moment. And as far as he's concerned, I only can really trust what I'm seeing at the moment. For Plato, that's an illusion. It looks like it's real, and that's the people in the cave, sitting chained to the wall, looking at the shadows. So for Plato, what we're doing when we're looking at what we think of as the visible world, we're actually looking at shadows. And it's only after we go further up the line where we get to, say, mathematical reasoning. Mathematics, if you want to know something for sure, seems like 2 plus 2 equals 4 is really, really certain, right? And when we look at the different kinds of sciences we have today, and a lot of people will argue that the kinds of things that we ought to be teaching, especially in Kansas, not that I'm picking just on Kansas, but I mean, they actually had this fight in Kansas over what schools should teach their children, and they wanted them to only teach things that were scientific and empirically based. That was the kind of knowledge they thought they ought to have. But that's kind of, I don't want to be critical of the people in Kansas, or especially in their Congress, but you actually use mathematics in order to verify an awful lot of our empirical science. And mathematics isn't an empirical science, right? It's a very abstract language, really. And if I ask you, did we already talk about this? Give me a 2. What's a 2? And we talked about that, right? We drew a line. It's not really a line, etc. It's a abstract conception that we have, and it's thanks to the rules of mathematics. We talked about the axioms, right? That for sure that 2 plus 2 equals 2, and under what circumstances could that be wrong, right? Under what circumstances could Euclidean geometry be wrong, and so on. So mathematics is more certain than this. Because I might describe the color of this, and you might disagree, because we might not see the color the same way. And in different lighting, it might be different perspectives. Notice the table changes in size when I move back and forth. Does that mean the size of the table is bigger or smaller? No, right? There's all kinds of problems we could develop over the nature of empirical observation and so on. But you don't have that problem with mathematics. So mathematics seems more certain, more knowledge-like for Plato, who really loved math, right? And that's kind of his bias, really. But then he goes on to one more stage, and that's equivalent to in the analogy where the prisoner has finally reached up and seen the sun, and he sees, the world as it really is, right? And in the analogy, that really would be for the ideas for Plato. What are the ideas for him? Remember, the word apparently started off with being what they perceived, but actually under Plato's use of it, it becomes some sort of abstract conceptual schema that kind of orders the world, right? So that there's perfection in these ideas. Well, if we go back to the Meno, and I think just recently I did the Meno. Here it is. So if we look at the Meno summary, this is ChatGPT. Am I still teaching, or am I cheating? So the Meno, by the way, remember, I think each dialogue is named according to the title of what the dialogue is about. And in this case, Meno, I interpret to be unchanging. Another example of Meno in the use of the title of the dialogue is in the Paramenides. So para means two, Meno means unchanging, and ideas are ideas. And Paramenides, which we'll hopefully talk a little bit about today too, is a dialogue that really is problematic because it it talks about the one and the many. You know, the universe is one thing, and yet we're loaded with parts. And how can you have one thing that has parts? It's a paradox. Para means two, paradoxa means beliefs, right? So you have two beliefs that are in conflict with one another. The same as Parmenides means two unchanging ideas, so you have this conflict. So Meno I interpret as unchanging. And the question in the Meno is, can virtue be taught? Can you teach virtue to a child, or to anyone, really, right? And what happens is they come to conclude that you cannot actually learn virtue. You're either born with a character that respects virtue, or you're not. So this is a point of view that says everybody is a unique individual that cannot be changed from their very beginnings. And I love asking, people that have had things to do with, little people, children, we call them, right? And if you think about it, how many of you have had relationships with children? Is there a difference? When they're born, is one, does it have a certain characteristic that is kind of its personality that it will retain until it's 99 years old? Is that different than another one? Do you feel that way? The children have. I get all these yeses. I usually do. I've never had anyone say no. They're all the same. No, that doesn't happen. Even puppies, and you have a litter of puppies, and this puppy is the one that's I like. It's the cutest. It always does this or whatever. They seem to have their own personalities, so to speak. In fact, the quiz question I think for today, I should have double checked. Now, so today's our actual fourth meeting, right? Yes? Because we had a day off last week. So this really should be class 3 and 4. Let me make sure I'm looking at. Did I not? The first quiz question. Thanks. I hate it when it does that. It goes on its own. Second quiz question. And this is the one I remember, right? The second, so this would be the second quiz question because that would be the fourth, right? Where he describes in his psychology the different kinds of types. And do you agree with Plato that each person's character is fixed from birth? So that's the quiz question that you can mess with for tonight. So email me your thoughts on that. This also becomes what we think of today as the nurture-nature issue. How much of your personality is a result of your nurturing that you get from your parents, your peers, your fellow classmates, all the people that make you who you are. And from Hegel, I've come to conclude that I am as I see others see me. So I'm more of a interaction with others in a social setting, and that's more who I am, as opposed to this, older belief that I have a specific self that you can't change. But in any case, so here's, I think, the first time that we have this presented to us philosophically. Probably an awful lot of what Plato is giving us has come from his experience and beliefs that were already current. for him, but he's the one that writes it and gives us this, and this is an idea. In fact, I'm using the word idea, and thank you, Plato, for giving us the word idea. But if you look at the big picture of his philosophy, individuals are souls. We talked about that last class, right? But for Plato, the soul is immortal. It can't be created. It can't be destroyed. Remember, because it's kind of like a point. A point is that which has no parts, and you've got a soul that, as far as Plato is concerned, it's invisible. You can't see it. You don't think of it as a particular location. Great. I mean, today we've got a whole bunch of science that's teaching us different things. But remember, this is 340 BC or so. So at our first attempt at what we think of as maybe a psychology, right? And as far as he's concerned, we do have a soul that is eternal. And in fact, at the end of the Republic, the myth of which is this is the whole last book of the Republic, is all about where our souls are leaving this body and now deciding which body they want to go into for their next life. So it's a reincarnation motif, right? The idea that Agamemnon is disappointed with human life because of all the things that happened to